welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be filming a 5 underrated Hoya video. I hope that makes sense. And hopefully my heating will kick off here soon. It is very cold here today, but I did turn it off for you guys. So hopefully, and it just kicked off. And now my dog has brought me a toy to play with. I look a little bit of a mess because I just got home from yoga. I tried aerial yoga this morning and it was a lot of fun. Kind of kicked my butt a little bit, but I got really excited. I came home and there was some nice lighting because the weather it's cold, but like it's bright and I'm excited about that. So I thought I would film a video for you guys while I felt motivated. So I'm just going to be talking about 5 Hoya in my collection that I think are underrated. So like I don't think enough people talk about them, and they're some of my favorite Hoyas, the ones that I'm constantly looking at because they're so cool, I guess. So without further ado, I guess we will just jump right in. Also, if you guys notice anything, I cut 12.5 inches off of my hair a week ago. So I'm still getting used to it. I kind of like the change. I feel a little bit more feisty. So yeah, leave a comment down below what you think of it. But I guess we'll just get into the video talking about some Hoya. I feel like I'm a little bit out of touch with filming because I haven't been filming as often. But one of my New Year's goals was to film a little bit more for you guys this year. So we're going to go ahead and pull up our first Hoya. I will try to get some B-roll of these so you can see them a little bit closer up. But the first Hoya, and these are in no particular order, I just am going to grab them. But the first Hoya I'm going to talk about is the Hoya flagellata. Here's what the tag says. So I'll also have the name of them on the screen. But I'm pretty sure that this Hoya is closely related to the Hoya caudata. And some people were saying they were the same things. But I have a hard time believing this and my caudata are the same because they look very different. This one is definitely one of those crusty, dusty Hoyas. And I never hear anybody talking about it. I found this at my local plant store probably about a year ago. It took a little bit of time for it to start growing, but recently it's been really taking off. And again, I'm going to put some B-roll on so you guys can really see. There are several new leaves that are like coming in right now, and they come in when they're a little bit smaller than this. This is almost hardened off, but when they're a little bit smaller than this, when they're still growing, they look very much like an oil slick. It's so amazing. Every time I see a new leaf, I get so excited because it's so beautiful. I wish I had like a good, well, you can kind of see the iridescence on the older leaves. Hopefully in the B-roll, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. And ignore how dusty all my plants are. You guys know how it is when the heat kicks on. I feel like everything is way more dusty. This one also needs to be watered, I'm realizing. But yeah, I really love this Hoya. I'm pretty sure that the blooms are kind of like a caudata. I'm thinking that's why people are saying that they're like the same thing because they have similar blooms. They're probably in the same family. This one is way different than my caudata, like I said. And I just really like it. The leaves are quite large and all of them are very like dinosaur-y. Like I think you can get a better look at the back, how much texture they have. Like how they're not just like flat leaves. They have a lot of waves and personality to them. So I really love this Hoya. It kind of gets hidden on my shelf, but it's starting to stand out more because it's growing finally a lot more. So I think I have some new growth here, and then this whole vine is new growth as well. So I did cut this one not that long ago, I think, to give to somebody. I took like a 1-leaf cutting and it really started taking off after that. So I am a firm believer if your Hoyas are a little bit slow growing to maybe give them a little haircut and they will start growing for you. And if not, then maybe you need to evaluate the roots or something. Although I have my Hoya, there's a Hoya that I have that it grew like a little bit whenever I first got it, and it totally stopped growing for almost a year, and it just started putting out a new leaf. So sometimes you just have to give them time, you guys, especially some of them like cooler temperatures, some of them like warmer temperatures. So you really just have to move them around and have fun with them. Like I don't think you need to keep them in the same place forever, but once you find the sweet spot for them, leave them because they will just grow like crazy and you'll fall in love with them all over again. Because I feel like there's some Hoya that I have that I don't love, but then they start growing again and I get so obsessed with them because nothing gives me the quite adrenaline rush that a new Hoya leaf will give me. So yeah, Hoya flageolata, totally underrated. I think more people should look out for this one and add it to their collection, especially if you're somebody that likes the more dinosaur-esque leaves. This one is perfect because of the iridescence of the leaves. Like, I really hope you guys are seeing that on the camera. They're so iridescent and beautiful. So that's the first Hoya we're going to talk about. Moving on to the second Hoya, which is like the reason I wanted to film this video, because this one is doing so well. If you guys have been on my channel for a while following my Hoya journey, you probably saw this one when I first got it and I almost killed it. But we have turned over a new leaf and this is probably one of my favorite Hoya. It's the Hoya Species PG04. So this is also, I think, referred to as like the mini Wyetii because it kind of looks like a mini Wyetii. But look how much it has grown, you guys. It's so gorgeous. And not enough people talk about this one. It's so adorable. Are you kidding me? With these leaves, I have so many vines going on. It's finally starting to branch out in different places. I cut this one a few times, but not recently. So all the places it's branching out on, totally on its own volition, because all of the vines are still growing and then it's also adding vines to those vines. So I love when Hoya do that because then it just gives you a fuller basket or pot a lot quicker. And I don't really like to cut my Hoya, if I'm being honest. I just really want big Hoya, even though I don't have space for them. But I can't find it in my heart. Look how good it looks. Like, how would I ever want to cut this? So this one has Wyetii-esque leaves. If you guys know the Hoya Wyetii, it's a fairly common Hoya. This one has leaves similar to that, but like on a miniature scale. And who doesn't love anything miniature? I love a Hoya Wyetii. It's one of my faves. One of my favorite, more common Hoya. So this one was right up my alley. I think I got it at a plant swap and hold on. Is that a mealybug? I don't think it was, but we're gonna do a little look-see real quick. I think it's just sap. I've never had mealybugs, and I would prefer to not start having mealybugs. I got thrips earlier this year from a local plant store, which was enough stress for me. I don't think that was mealybugs, so we're just gonna continue on. But the leaves on it, they're kind of like tacos. They bend in. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but they fold in a little bit and they get the dark margins when they're sun stressed. So let me find a good one. Here's a good leaf. So this Hoya has a little bit of sun stress on this leaf, well, on all of them, and the margins get really dark. So that just adds a little bit more flair to it. And as I was looking for mealybugs on here, I noticed so many more growth points that I didn't notice before because this just hangs off of my shelf. Kind of gets lost in there, but it's wrapping around the bottom of it. And I don't really look too closely at it, but I can find at least 4 more growth points that are starting. So that is so awesome. This is going to be a big, beautiful Hoya before spring even gets here. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like in the spring. I should probably cut it and fill up the pot a little bit more because it does want to tip over all of the time. When I water, water goes everywhere because it tips over. So that needs to be addressed. Or I'll just put it in like a heavier pot. But the Hoya PG04 is a great Hoya for a beginner. It's so easy to care for. I would say I usually just water it sometimes and that's it. As you should with your plants. I don't have my Hoya on a schedule at all for watering. It's kind of just whenever I feel like it. And I think that's what's so great about Hoya is they are a little bit more resilient in the fact that they can go a little longer without watering. Now, if you're not watering them as often as they would like, sure, they may survive, but they may not grow for you. So if you're having problems with your Hoya growing, then maybe think about upping your watering a little bit more. And most of my Hoya, I like to keep in terracotta. The last 2 I've showed you have been in plastic nursery pots, but all the other ones I'm going to show you are in terracotta. I know that's a little bit of a controversial opinion as to whether you should keep them in terracotta or not, but I've never had an issue. Even whenever I repot, yes, some of the leaves get stuck on the terracotta because they try to grab onto it because they're amphibic. So Hoya like to grow up things, so they attach their roots to things. But it's never affected the Hoya when I've repotted them. They still continue to grow and be very happy. One thing about Hoyas is they love to be root bound, so you don't need to repot them that often as is. Sometimes when I've gone to repot a Hoya, which one that I'm going to show you has been this way, the whole pot was roots and there was hardly any soil in it, and it was still as happy as could be. So keep that in mind. You don't really need to repot them all that much. Even though this is in the tiniest container and there's a little bit of a root coming out of it, I'm probably not going to repot it for like another 6 months to a year, to be honest. So it's been in this pot forever. That's the perfect thing about Hoya. And if you get small Hoya like this, you can have a lot of them. So I recommend you looking into a Hoya PG04 if you can. And if you find one, they should be relatively cheap, and I recommend wholeheartedly. One of my favorite Hoya right here. I think I've talked about it before in one of my favorite Hoya videos, so you guys are no stranger to it, I'm sure. But I do have one that I haven't really talked about in any of my videos. Maybe I have, I don't know, but I don't usually take it off the shelf because it sits up in one of my windows, and those plants I don't usually remove from the shelves because getting them back up when they've grown in place is a little bit difficult, and they also grow a little funny. So this one's going to be kind of hard to see, but this is the Hoya Caramay. This one does not get talked about nearly enough. This Hoya I got as a freebie, or it was like in a mystery box from one of the local girls that I buy from. And I had never heard of it before. I got it, obviously. So it might be a little thirsty. I see the leaves are a little bit wrinkly, but it's in a terracotta pot. It kind of reminds me of a Hoya Heshkaliana green. The leaf shape is very similar, but I think it's a little bit more round and more compact than that one. I do have that one, and it's growing like a weed as well. This one also grows like a weed. After it got started, it took a minute. I cut it, and the cutting it was the best thing I could have done for it because it started really picking up growth after that. And now it's growing so many vines. As I'm looking at it, there's some new leaves up in here as well, and they're so cute. I'll try to get those on the B-roll when I put it on the screen for you guys so you can see how cute the new leaves look. They're like, hands are still together, but I just love this one. It's so cute. And then the girl that I gave the cutting to, she's obsessed with it as well because it is a smaller leaf Hoya, and the leaves don't get very large at all on this one. Again, I think if you can't find a Hoya Caramay and you like the look of this one, you could totally do a Heshkaliana green. They are very similar. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. Since I have it down, it's the perfect time to readjust because it was starting to grow around the pot of Hoya Crimson Princess that I have. But the leaves can come in very sunstressed on this one. I think in the summer, because it sits in a south-facing window, it did get a little bit more like sun stress. I don't necessarily know that it was a good thing for it, but it survived and it's here now and it's so cute. And I did want to say, so all these Hoyas that I've showed you so far are perfect trailing Hoyas. They don't really tendril out too much. So yes, this one has a lot of tendril right here that doesn't have leaves, but it hangs very nicely and it fills in with leaves relatively quickly, much like the Hoya PG04. As you can tell at the bottom, there's a lot of new leaves coming in all at once, opposed to it having like a really, really long vine that never seems to grow leaves, which I don't think any of the Hoya that I'm showing you today really have that issue. Maybe one of them that I'm going to show you next, but these ones, these are really nice to hang, and the leaves don't tend to get smaller. These vines aren't really trying to find anything to wrap around, although they would love it. All Hoya would love to climb. Most of them, maybe not like a linearis or something along those lines, but most Hoya are going to want to climb. But there are some Hoya that do just naturally do okay when they're hanging, and I personally love those Hoya. I wish all my Hoya could hang, but I did have to put some on trellises, so we're going to show the next two, and those are on trellises, but this is the Hoya Caramay. If you find one and you get a good deal on it, honestly, I don't know how much these go for, but I can't imagine that they'd be very pricey because they grow so quickly. Please grab one for your collection. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really love this one. So that was the Hoya Caramay, and I'm going to talk about some trellis Hoya now. I don't know that I've really ever talked about this one on my channel, but this is my Hoya Kaimuki. It has a very gross fungus gnat trap in it, so ignore that. This one also lives in terracotta, but this is one of the newer leaves that's still hardening off. I know the Hoya Kaimuki, I'm pretty sure it's a cross between something. I'll put it on the screen if I remember, but my favorite part about this Hoya and what I think makes it underrated, I don't have a picture, or I don't have any new leaves that are big enough for you to tell. I do have some new ones coming in up here, but when the leaves come in, they come in like the most gorgeous Hershey chocolate brown. And I know that might sound weird to compare it to Hershey chocolate, but it literally looks like Hershey chocolate. It's so gorgeous. I've tried to take a picture of it before, but I just can't capture it on camera quite well. This one has been a little bit of a slower grower for me, but I think that's on me. I didn't care for it very well at the beginning, and I finally put it on a trellis not that long ago, maybe a couple months ago. And since it's settled into the trellis life, it is starting to grow for me a little bit more. So I have this new vine up here with some new leaves coming in. So we're not going to touch it because I don't want to knock them off. I'd be very sad about that. But the leaves are just a really nice shape. The edges of them are like wavy. So if you can look at the back of the leaf, that might be a better example. It kind of folds under a little bit, which I think gives it a nice little unique touch. And I do think that these leaves can get a little bit larger than mine are. This one sits on the top of my plant shelf in the kitchen, so it's like right under the furnace, the heat. So I probably don't water it as much as I should these days because it dries out so fast with the heat. But like I said, I'm pretty lax when it comes to watering my Hoya. I do try to make sure to water them at least once, if not twice a week. I know that sounds like a lot, but again, I keep my Hoya in terracotta. Most of the time the pots are pretty small terracotta, so they dry a lot, but they seem very happy. I don't have any Hoya that don't really grow, so I think I'm doing something okay. But the Hoya Kaimuki, it's kind of boring looking. I don't actually know what the blooms look like. That's something about me. I will buy a Hoya for blooms sometimes, but usually I'm going to buy a Hoya for the leaves because a lot of times you're not going to get blooms for a very long time. So you need to enjoy the Hoya without the blooms as well. And this one was sold to me from somebody local here. They did a purge a while ago. I think I've had this one for at least a year. And in the photos, I saw the leaves were that like really deep chocolatey brown. This isn't the perfect example. They're a lot prettier than this. This one's starting to harden off and then it turns to green. But when I saw it in the photo, I needed it. I just kept refreshing to make sure I didn't miss it because I just couldn't let it go. So Hoya Kaimuki on the list for sure. If you like a more largely Hoya, a medium to largely Hoya, this would be a good one to get. I do think you need to trellis it though because I had it being all willy-nilly and it wasn't doing great. But again, I also wasn't caring for it as closely as I probably should have because I tend to let my larger leaf Hoya like suffer a little bit more. Like I feel like they don't need as much because they retain the water a lot more. So I wouldn't say the leaves on this one are thick, but they're not like a thin leaf Hoya by any means. Like I couldn't bend it without snapping it. But yes, I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm just rambling a little bit, but I'm having a lot of fun. So bear with me as we get into the fifth and final underrated Hoya in my collection, which I don't know how to say the name of this. So I'm going to put it on the screen. I know it starts with an H. It's like Heniensis or something. I don't know. I probably butchered it. This one was in a mystery box from the Hoya house, and when I got it, it kind of looked like it had been an import Hoya, and it wasn't in the best shape. You'll see some of the older leaves, because most of the leaves, I mean, I'm surprised that this Hoya survived, but this is what it looks like now. It's freaking huge. It's been growing like a weed. What I like to do with my trellises, I'm going to let this get some heavier leaves to weigh it down a little bit, and then I'll make it go around the trellis. You don't want to wait too long when the stem is woody because then it's hard to bend and you'll probably break it. But you don't want this vine to be pointing down because it'll probably die off. So what I always do is I let it grow. When it starts getting leaves and naturally falling, then that's when I'll guide it around the trellis. But you want to kind of let them do a little bit of their own thing. You can see I have another one over here before you start trying to wrap it because you might kill the vine or you might break it. Just let some of the leaves come in first. It might look a little wild for a minute, but it's okay. But here's some of the older leaves. They look very different than the new leaves, and they're very much thinner than the new leaves. These are pretty comparable to the leaves on the Kaimuki in thickness-wise, but these remind me kind of a Hoya. It's not the Calistophylla, but it's the Crassipedialata. These really similar. I have that Hoya as well. I might try to get some footage of that as well. But it kind of reminds me of those, but they're a much different shape. These are a little bit more round than that one. And these do sit pretty closely together on my shelf. So sometimes the vines intertwine and I am like, wait, which one's which? But I just think this is so underrated. More people should be talking about it because look at the veins. The leaf is just a nice deep dark green color, and it's got some nice veining. These sit under Hoya Barina lights, and it kind of sits off to the side. So I have my Barina lights. I have one per shelf, and they're in the middle of the shelf. So this one sits a little bit more to the side, so it's not getting pounded with light. When it did get pounded with light, the leaves were a little bit lighter of a color because they got a little bit sun-stressed or bleached in that case, and the leaves were smaller. So these leaves down here that are really small, that's when it was living like directly under the light. And then when I rearranged my shelf, this one kind of got pushed to the outskirts, and the leaves are much larger and darker. So I'm learning that with lighting in Hoya, that if it gets more light, then the leaves tend to be a lot smaller because they don't need as much surface area to get that, what is it called, photosynthesis. But if they are not getting as much light, they need a larger surface area to get the photosynthesis. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of how it's been working in my collection as I move my Hoya around and learn about them a lot more. So that's one thing to think about if you have some Hoya, or if you get this Hoya after I've been talking about it and showing it to you. Maybe you just move them around in the same area to see if you can get the leaves to change a little bit, if you want yours to be a little bit bigger like mine are getting. But yeah, I just really love the shape and the veining on this Hoya. If you're a veiny Hoya kind of person and you haven't heard about the Hoya Kaimuki, I don't think that that's the name of it. I think that's a different Hoya, but I had the name of it on the screen. And it has very subtle splashing. I don't think any of the Hoya that I talked about today really have any splashing. This one has a little bit of splashing, but I do like splashy Hoya, but it's not my favorite thing. I am definitely like a leaf girl. I love the leaves that are like crusty dusty. I love tiny leaves. I love weird shaped leaves, veiny leaves. I like the leaves that are pillowy, and this one can get pillowy leaves if you look here. It's got a little bit more texture to it. So this one is just like the best of everything. It has very small amount of splashing, but it does have splashing. The leaf shape is really unique. It's veiny, it's got some texture, and I just love it. So Hoya, I'm not gonna say the name again, but that is Hoya number 5 that I think is underrated. And that is all the Hoya that I had to talk to you about today. Sorry this was long and rambly, and I feel like I haven't filmed a video in forever, so I feel like I was stumbling over my words. So hopefully that wasn't awkward for you guys. But if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below on what your most underrated Hoya is, because I want to know, because I want to add some more Hoya to my collection pretty soon. So leave them down below and subscribe to my channel for more random content. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!